The New York Jets playoff drought is officially continuing as the New York Jets fall in overtime to the Miami Dolphins. The Jets have now lost 8 straight in Miami, and we have a lot to talk about here on this show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Make sure to give us a like and a subscribe. Make sure to bash into the like column and also join our live chat. Again, want to get all your comments and thoughts on this game because there are a lot of them. And also, if you love a podcast, you can follow us wherever podcasts are streaming: SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Spreaker. We are available in your pocket. So there is a lot to get into with this Jet game. There's a lot to talk about with the front office. There's a lot to talk about in terms of the players. But overall, the biggest reason the Jets are not in a good position, the biggest reason the Jets have been in a rut for 14 years, one of the biggest reasons the Jets have been the disaster that they've been is simple. It's coaching. The Jets coaching staff, again, has been put in a pretty much unattainable situation because losing Robert Saleh. But again, this was a staff that Robert Saleh hired, a staff that Robert Saleh went 24-36 with. This is not a well-coached team. And I've talked about this a lot on my last episode, but again, I think coaching clearly came into this one because the Jets have talent. The Jets were in this game, and the Jets, for the third time in 3 weeks, went into the fourth quarter with a lead. Good coaches do not allow what has happened to happen. Good coaches have their teams prepped for late in the games. Good coaches have a game plan, and there was so many times in this game, so many times where coaching could have made the difference. Look, this was the best Aaron Rodgers. Look, his first 300-yard game as a Jet. Woo, yeah, whatever. But here's the biggest thing I look at. Coaching is apparent. And I think you're seeing the coaching starting to boil over. And I'll get to some of the post-game comments that are really raising eyebrows for me with Jeff Ulbrich. And again, I know Jeff Ulbrich is in a tough position, but some of his comments are driving me nuts. But here's the biggest thing you have to know. The Jets are 0-7 in games decided by 6 points or less. 0-7. If the Jets were even a game below 500 in those games, 3-4, this would be a team that would be on the outside looking in, but still in the playoff hunt with 6 wins. Unfortunately, they're not. And you look at this situation with this Jet team, despite everything, they still could have been in this, but they're not. And a lot of it comes down to coaching. Now, do you want to blame Woody Johnson for firing Robert Saleh too early? Sure, you can do that. But this is also a team that we said coming into the season, every Jet fan, even with Robert Saleh, we all felt the same way that this was not a well-coached team. And unfortunately, the way we came into the season was that Robert Saleh would coach a decent defense and Aaron Rodgers would figure it out. But Aaron Rodgers is not the same quarterback anymore. And what we learned is Robert Saleh and the staff that he has built, they are not good football coaches. They are not good situational coaches, and they don't understand good situational football. And I think that the biggest play of this game is going to get overshadowed by a comment made by Jeff Ulbrich. And look, Jeff Ulbrich, I think it's getting to the point where he knows he's going to be out of a job. He's going to be looking for new employment next year. And I'll get to Aaron Rodgers' comments, but look, Jeff Ulbrich on the Jets, 0 sacks or hits today on Tua. Tua gets the ball quick in the league. Okay, well, you got to figure out how to get to the quarterback. And then here's the biggest thing that really irks me. Anders Carlson, he says, was supposed to kick the ball out of the end zone on the kickoff late in the fourth quarter, which led to the big return. I have a lot of problems with this. I have a ton of problems with that. First of all, let's get back to the last sequence of the game. To me, the biggest play in this game and the biggest sequence was the Jets are on the Dolphins side of the field. Jets first play, negative rushing yards. Next play, Rodgers drops back, is sacked. 3rd and 15, just outside of field goal range. It's a third down. Dolphins have used all their timeouts, and Rodgers finds Davante Adams along the sideline. Now, Ulbrich has said he was supposed to stay in bounds. And look, Davante Adams is a great pro and had a great day. But on that play, it just seemed to me, and this is the optics I had, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, it seemed like Adams just was like, okay, I caught the ball, I made the play. Instead of fighting to stay in bounds or trying to cut back to the middle of the field. Instead, he allows the defender to push him out. Why is that huge? Because it left 50-something seconds on the clock. If he stays in bounds, Dolphins can't stop the clock. Jets can run it down to under 20 seconds. And two things happen. If Anders Carlson misses the kick, it's going to be nearly impossible for the Dolphins to get in field goal range. Or if he makes the kick like he did, the Jets are probably winning that football game. Instead, he doesn't get out of bounds. And I know what a lot of you were thinking was what I was thinking. The Dolphins are somehow going to figure this out. And of course they do. And yes, could Anders Carlson had a better kick on that kickoff? Sure. But you also know what could have helped? The four guys in front of him that missed tackles that could have made a tackle earlier in that return. And I don't know, maybe you don't get on the kicker who had 4 field goals today, the kicker who has saved your kicking game that has been sorry this entire season. But instead, Jeff Ulbrich calls out Anders Carlson, who's probably the Jet with the least person you could call out today. But look, this Jet team, I think you still see positives. Garrett Wilson, a big game. If I'm the Jets, I don't think Garrett will want to, but I try to give him a big extension this offseason. I thought that this defense, again, struggled today, but on the offensive line, Olaf Ashanu, again, looks solid at left tackle. I think this offensive line's a lot better. Aaron Rodgers played well. And look, the big thing down this stretch is you want Rodgers to play well enough, I guess, where maybe some team will get the idea to trade for him. I still think Rodgers is gone at the end of the season. And the big thing, too, is the Jets, if you want to look at the grand scheme of everything, they didn't lose draft position. Currently picking number 7. The Titans have the same record, but they share the same strength of schedule. And look, I think that the Jets will beat Jacksonville. I think the Jets are going to get to 4 wins because I think Jacksonville is that bad with Mac Jones. But the rest of the games, I think the Jets are going to finish with 4 wins. I didn't think the Jets were going to get the number 1 pick. I think that your goal is to try to get a top 10 pick, which I think they will get. But overall, look, this is a game where, look, it's so. And Rodgers, interestingly, on the Jets missing the playoffs, I've started 1 year, so I'm a part of it 1 year. It's disappointing. Well, you were technically 2, but you got hurt. The expectations were high. We didn't reach them, not even close. And look, I'm being able to finish our game. Everyone has some skin in it. We had our opportunities on offense. We had to get to 30, and we didn't do it. Look, Rodgers, I think, is still going to try to play the blame game. I think it's done. And look, he had his best game as a Jet. But once again, in the red zone, I thought the Jets are running the football well. The Jets get too pass happy in the red zone. I think Rodgers is trying to put up some stats there. Jets walked away with some opportunities. And look, this is a frustrating game. But if I'm trying to take a silver lining out of this, which I think a lot of us as Jet fans are trying to do at this point, is it was something I brought up last week. And I think it's very important. And I had a basketball coach that brought up a very good point. And my basketball coach would say, in a 2 or 3 point game, you can blame those losses on me because those are 1 possession games. The 1 possession games come down to coaching. And what's happened again? The Jets were in a 1 possession game and they couldn't figure it out. Like even the Jets won 2 games. They still have 5 wins. They're 0-7. They're not that far away. They've gone into the 4th quarter with leads. It's one of those things where the Jets have arguably the worst coaching staff in the National Football League. If you gave this team a halfway decent coaching staff, they're probably at the bare minimum 3-4 in these 1 possession games. And then, oh, wow, look, all of a sudden the Jets have what? Instead of 0 wins in that column, they have 3. They're a 6-win team right now. Again, still on the outside looking into the postseason. But man, it is just so frustrating where this coaching is just mine. I mean, look, we pretty much have known this for weeks. And I know the national media will again point out the 14th year, LOL, okay, blah, blah, blah. And like, here's the thing. We've known for 2 weeks this team's done. We've known this team was done. You know, it's and Devontae asking about the catch after the game too. Again, look, if Devontae Adams stays in bounds. And look, Devontae had probably one of his best games as a Jets, but if he stays in bounds there, the Jets can run the clock out and get out of Miami with the win. And look, it's a weird thing because, yes, let's be honest, the Jets are not making the playoffs. there's still that very like 1% chance. But the biggest thing to me was, look, if they won in Miami, would I have been disappointed about the draft pick status a little bit? But look, I would have rather ended that Miami drought. I would have rather just been the Dolphins, because I think the Dolphins, especially their fan base, is just mind numbing. Like, that's the biggest thing. I just want to beat the Dolphins selfishly, being a Jet fan. But at the end of the day, the Jets didn't compromise their draft position. And look, I think that you see that the Jets, and I know there's a lot of negative around this franchise, which I get. But if you're a prospective head coach and you look at what's in the cupboard for this team, you have a left tackle in Olu Fashanu. You have 4 of the 5 offensive line positions figured out. You have a dynamic superstar in Garrett Wilson. You have a 3-headed monster in Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and Breece Hall. Like, if you are, for example, as it came out this week, that Mike Vrabel might be interested in this job he has, saying the GM. Like, Mike Vrabel won with great defense, running the football, and basically working with less than subpar quarterbacks. And you don't think, like, especially if you're a head coach that wants to be a run-first team and you see that the Jets have some good pieces, they have some good running backs, that's not attractive. Like, the Jets have pieces. I do think there's going to be some tough decisions. Does Jeremy Ruckert come back? Again, I think Jeremy Ruckert is a better story than a football player right now for this team. Tyler Conklin probably is not on this team next year. DJ Reed, despite having what I thought was his worst game, he's having a great year overall. I don't think he's back. The safety position needs an overall, and this defense needs it all too. And look, like, one player on this defense too that I would also say should really pick it up is Hassan Reddick, because Hassan Reddick is just getting egg all over his face. Because let's put it this way, Hassan. You want to get that contract, well, you're not getting it from the Jets. And right now, if you were to ask anyone around the league, you're going to get like the league minimum. All right, let's get to some of your comments. This season needs to end. You can't end soon enough. Who said Reed was a top core? I'm cool letting him walk in free agency. A lot of good corners this draft. I also want to see over these next couple games here, if Sauce is banged up. I think Sauce looked great against Seattle. I think Sauce is still a major building block. I want to see Quantez Stiggers out there, either at the safety position or the corner position. I think he's an intriguing corner. I think Brandon Echols played well despite him being a free agent as well. Look, I just think that this is an opportunity where I look at Reed, and look, I think Reed's going to hit the open market and someone's going to pay him. Someone's going to pay him. But here's the thing. I think if you're going to pay him too, I think a team's going to pay him as a number 1 corner. Is he a number 1 corner on a team? Because as much as we rip Sauce, it's a little bit easier when Sauce, again, he doesn't follow the number 1 receiver all the time, but when Sauce is out there, he's usually going against the team's 1, and teams are trying to force it to DJ Reed, who's on the team's number 2. If DJ Reed has to cover team's number 1, I think he can do it in certain cases, but man, there's going to be some of that. Dano Jets with the banging new logo, Dano. My God, that looks snazzy. Chef's kiss, my man. Not enough ball control offense. We got to get into a track meet with them. Look, I wanted to see this team stick to the run game more. It just was frustrating because, again, I know the stats aren't praising me. 4 yards per carry, 21 touches. But look, you had 2 running backs that, especially with Braylon Allen, I think can wear out a defense. And to slow down that Miami offense, and if you're not getting a pass rush, you just need to eliminate. But look, I thought this was a good game. Braylon Allen had a nice game. 4 catches out of the backfield, was 3rd on the team in receptions today. Devontae Adams leading with 9 catches for 109 yards. Garrett Wilson, 7 for $114. Jamie Sherwood out of his mind, 13 tackles. Look, Jamie, if you were to ask me right now who, again, it depends on the defensive scheme they're going to run, which I know is going to play a huge part of it. But to me, if you had to ask me who's one free agent on this team right now that this team has to bring back, to me, it's Jamie Sherwood. He's a dynamic linebacker, can run sideline to sideline. I think that you can find a place for him. Like, to me, of all the players, he is someone that I would try to definitely bring back. We say this thing every week. We know Garrett is good. We know Ulu will be serviceable. Look, I think he'll be more than serviceable. I think he'll be more than serviceable. Look, there's changes coming here. There's definitely changes. Again, guys, comment in the live stream. Let us know what your thoughts are. I think he's good. I don't know, Drones. I think there's a good chance he does, but we will see. My mission is to prevent the Johnsons from earning a Lombardi. Continues. Okay, Christopher. Uh, should have draft. Look, but part of the reason Drones is, in retrospect, yes, they should drop the draft back Bowers. But the problem is because Joe Douglas has done such a god awful job drafting the offensive line, they had to draft an offensive lineman. Because the year before, even though I think the pick looks better now in retrospect over Broderick Jones, they have not picked a good offensive line. And because they needed an offensive lineman, look, I think it's still going to be a good pick and a good long-term pick, but I get the frustration. But unfortunately, when you don't build out a roster and you don't have good depth, you have to sometimes in drafts, and we saw it with Brock Bowers, maybe give up on the blue chip to eat your vegetables and basically be able to get people that are going to fill out the team. And look, I still think Olu's still going to be a very good pick. I still am very high on him. I think what we've seen so far is he's going to be a franchise left tackle, and those are so hard. Again, look, here's the thing I will look at. And again, Drones, you can disagree with me. You can all disagree with me in the chat. Here's my thoughts. Is Brock Bowers a special unicorn? Yes. But if you were to ask me today, what is harder to find today in the draft, and what's a harder position to find? A dynamic receiving tight end or an offensive or good left tackle? I still think it's the left tackle. Like, you could name the left tackles on one hand. Meanwhile, you look at dynamic tight ends in the league, there's a lot. You have your Kittles, you have your Kelseys, you have even today your Jonnu Smiths. Yes, do I think Bowers is in the top 3 in terms of overall talent? Sure. But we've seen great tight ends go on day 2 in the draft. We've seen great tight ends come from rounds 2, round 3. You can find really athletic tight ends, especially if you know how to use them. But you know what you have a really hard time finding? Good left tackles. And look, if that's the last Joe Douglas first-round pick, it was a pretty decent one. But, man, it is frustrating. Drew and Eccles combined for 23 solo tackles. We had 42 as a team, so they more than half. They came ready to play. Yeah, like, I don't know what was happening. DJ Reed, too much cushion today. I don't know what got into him. Brandon Eccles, I thought, had a very nice game as well. Pass rush, look, was non-existent. And a lot of it, too, is you wonder, I know Tua gets the ball quick, but a lot of it's effort. When you're not getting the pass rush, should you blitz a little bit more? And look, another big storyline in this game that wasn't talked about is Malachi Corley. Again, Alan Lazard's back from the IR, but Corley healthy and active, and it just annoys me the hell out of me because, look, do I think at the time Corley was a great pick? No. But to me, he's still someone he's a dynamic player with the football in his hands. You're missing a dynamic player like Breece Hall. I'm sick and tired of seeing Xavier Gipson on these punt and kick returns. I think we have maxed that out. Like, can we give him an opportunity? If we're not going to give the kid that last week had the great kick return, like, can we give Malachi Corley an opportunity to return kicks or punts? I mean, it couldn't hurt. And I get that Alan Lazard is one of Aaron's favorites, but I'm looking out there. It's like Irv Charles. Like, can we try Corley as a gunner? Like, seriously. And Dano's hitting the leg, and it looks like he's hitting 2 Yinglings at the same time. 2 beers. If you can't see us in the podcast, he's doing the beer emoji. They play 2 off-bar receivers. They play for the red zone stops. Look, I know they didn't want to get hit with the big play today, especially against Miami. You know, Miami's looking for those home runs, but Miami will do either or to you. They'll do one of 2 things. They'll either kill you with 1,000 cuts, which they did today, or they'll hit you with the home run. They did, dude. Drones, like, could you imagine if we were here right now and you look at the left tackle? I mean, let me give you this fun scenario because Tyron Smith is out for pretty much for the season. Let's put it this way. Morgan Moses, who got nicked in the warmups, this would have been your starting tackles today. Are you ready? Carter Warren and Max Mitchell. And we saw how much of a turnstile Max Mitchell was at right tackle. You know, like, everyone wants to, I get the frustration, but there is a world, an alternate universe where, yeah, they have Brock Bowers out there, but guess what? Aaron Rodgers can't give him the football because he doesn't have his mobility, and you have Carter Warren and Max Mitchell playing tackle. Like, that is the world we would live in. Do the Jets go after Vrabel, or what coach can take over this team? I'm curious. Look, Jared, we'll get into the coaching stuff. Vrabel's my number 1 choice because I think he's proven he can win with he can win without a great quarterback in this league, which is very difficult to do. I seriously would rather have a head coach. I know Ben Johnson's going to be a popular candidate. I don't think he's coming here. He already made a comment this week that'll rub some people the wrong way. That's saying like his team will accept certain interviews. Like I will even accept an interview from the Jets. I don't know. Again, is he going to be someone that's going to demand personnel control? And as for first-time head coach, that scares me. I know Aaron Glenn is a popular name, and I really do love Aaron Glenn. I think he's going to be a very good candidate. But the way this team is such a mess right now, you need a professional head coach. And like, I will even put this out there. I am not a fan of making Rex Ryan the head coach. I'll dive into more details. Like, I'll do a video this week. And again, guys, let me know in the comments. Do you want me to do a Joe Douglas draft review, or do you want me to do a head coach review? I kind of want to do the head coach then later in the season, but I can definitely do that. Let me know in the comments. And I'll get to my Rex Ryan takes a minute. Hey, are you serious? Have you seen them the last 2 weeks? Right tackle's been turnstile. Today was Max Mitchell. The week before was Carl Warren. So my thoughts on the head coach are, look, Rex Ryan, I would rather take a chance with Rex Ryan than I would with a first-time head coach. Because, look, Rex Ryan has proven he can be a head coach. Rex Ryan has proven that he can at least do a good job with the defense. But here's the one thing with Rex. If Rex wants to have any serious contention, I think Rex is going to get an interview. Rex has to come in with a plan, but more importantly, a handpicked staff, and not a staff that he picked the day before. He needs to be like, look, I've been trying to do this for months now. I've been making this contact. This is my OC, my O-line coach, my quarterback coach. Like, he needs to have all that done. Give a shot. As much as Bowers would have been nice, there's no way to watch the 23 and say to yourself, yeah, we want more O-tackle play, and Olu's becoming dominant already. Look, I agree. Like, I think that with Olu, it was the right pick. It's not the sexiest pick. I get it. It's not the fantasy football pick with that. But, man, look, I just don't think, like, you saw the offensive line last year. And, again, I mean, the offense still hasn't functioned well this year. But, I mean, like, if they didn't, like, let's play the hypothetical. They don't draft Olu. Who are they drafting? Are they drafting some tackle in the second or third round? Like, who's their backup quarterback? Like, if they went into this game with Carter Warren and Max Mitchell and Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again, or they can't move the football, the biggest criticism is going to be, well, they should have drafted a tackle. Yeah, it's great they have Brock Bowers. It's great they have Devontae Adams. And this is the other thing, too. Like, people make it sound like this team's devoid of weapons. They're not. They have Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson as their number one and number two receivers. How many teams in the NFL have that 1-2 combination, and they still can't get it done? Question from Dano. Do you think we'd get a better head coaching candidate if we hire one this offseason, or hire a one-year bridge head coach to be look, you can't do a one-year head coach. There's no such thing as a bridge. You need a full-time coach. And look, you're going to be someone that needs to be invested in this program. Like, because again, like, the only bridge is like if Pete Carroll basically came in and said, look, like, I want to be the head of the football operations. I'll be the initial head coach, kind of what Parcells started as, and says, look, eventually I have my successor picked out. He's going to replace me. Like, that is the only scenario where I could see that. And I mean, look, gotta give Garrett Wilson a lot of credit. Cooking Jalen Ramsey, 4 of 6 against Jalen Ramsey, the most receiving yards allowed by Ramsey since 2017. So Garrett Wilson was cooking with gas today. Let's see. Jets won 7 games exactly the same O-line. You're trying to diss. The problem was lack of playmakers. The Jets have playmakers. They have Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. They have Allen Lazard, their number 3 receiver. They drafted Malachi Corley. They have Devontae Adams. Like, you're making it sound like this is the Jets with Deontay Burnett as Sam Darnold's number 1 freaking option. Like, they have playmakers. They don't have an offensive line. And Aaron Rodgers wouldn't even be standing if they didn't have this offensive line right now. Like, this offensive line, John Simpson's been a great guard. AVT's been solid at right guard. You have a good off center in Joe Tippmann. You have, like, the pass pro's gotten a lot better since they put Olu in there. Like, give me a break. Give me a break. Yeah, they wouldn't have had to get Devontae Adams, but guess what? They still would have lost games because they couldn't protect Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't matter. Like, I get that they got Brock Bowers, that you wanted Brock Bowers. I get that Brock Bowers is arguably the best playmaker in this draft. I get all that. But guess what? It doesn't matter if you have a Corvette in the freaking garage if you can't get the football to it. Like, seriously. Like, the Jets had 2 receivers that went over 100 yards today. And you're complaining that they don't have enough playmakers. They got enough playmakers. They have enough playmakers. You know what's also going to be more appealing to a head coach next season for this team? It's going to be more appealing to have 4 of the 5 offensive line positions figured out. You know what wouldn't be appealing? If the next head coach comes in and says, oh, we don't have a quarterback, we don't have a left tackle, we don't have a right tackle, and by the way, we might not have a left guard or a right guard. Yeah, I have 2 of my 5 offensive line positions. I got to go find 3 offensive linemen in free agency in the draft and also find a quarterback. Good luck. Good luck. The defense for years and years doesn't ever seem to come clutch. And look, you're right. You're right, seriously. They don't. But again, I think a lot of it still comes down to the coaching. I think the coaching on this team does not put this team in good enough position. And I think a lot of this coaching too, like the defense, let me put it this way too. Did the Jets lose out on this defense because this team was in a bad situation? Sure. But would have also helped, and it's funny, the Jets are and this is the one thing I hate about this culture and why I think they need a complete redo is like, it's the blame. Oh, we blame Anders Carlson because he didn't kick it out of the end zone. How about we blame Aaron Rodgers? This is the first game he finally got over 300 yards as a quarterback. How about this is a game where we blame Devontae Adams, where if he can try a little bit harder and stay in bounds and milk the clock, guess what, guys? We talk about this defense with those 2 drives, but guess what? If Devontae Adams stays in bounds and this team burns clock and this defense has to come out for basically a Hail Mary, guess what? This team probably wins this game. But instead, Devontae goes out of bounds, leaves about 50 seconds, great kickoff return, and what do you know? And even if it wasn't a good kickoff return, guess what? Dolphins were going to get the football, the 30-yard line? So what? They have to go to get 30 yards to get in a field goal range? 35? It's not that much, especially with 50 seconds. It's really not that much. But looking at Tankathon, the Jets currently have the 7th pick. To give you an idea, picks 1 and 2 right now belong to Vegas and the Giants, who are both 2 wins. New England is currently at 3 and 10. Carolina, Jacksonville, Tennessee, the Jets, and Cleveland all with 3 wins. They have 2 4-win teams at night. And so I think the Jets are pretty much, the Jets are going to be picking in the top 8 pretty much. The question is, can they get in the top 5 or the top 3? And we'll discuss it too with the quarterbacks. And again, I every week it's funny. Like I keep seeing the lazy report where it's like, well, the Jets are in a position they want to draft the quarterback. Yeah, no, they're going to do that. Garrett Wilson on the Jets blowing so many fourth quarters. When you're up in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden start to feel like we have a losing problem, like a gene or some shit. It's not like we're going out there and getting our butt beat from the start to finish. No, we have our chance to win the game. We're supposed to win the game. Odds are in our favor, and we find a way to lose the game. It's so frustrating for sure. Look, and again, I think it comes down to head coaching culture because I think this coaching staff does not put this team in the best position to win games. This team is bad at situational football. This team doesn't understand the situations, and it's the very little things. It is the very little things that can help determine the outcome of the game. And it's so simple. If Devontae Adams, for example, and I think this play needs to get talked about instead of Anders Carlson kicking out of the end zone, if they stay in bounds on that play, if Devontae makes the clock continue to wind, and the Jets burn a timeout with 15 seconds, and that's about 5 to 6 seconds for the field goal play. And even if they have a great kickoff return, the Dolphins are going to have 4 or 5 seconds to try a Hail Mary. That's it. That's it. And, you know, it's just frustrating because again, I get all the frustration with this team, and I get that a lot of people are now looking back at the previous draft saying what they could have done. But look, in some ways, I'm kind of glad that this is happening in a weird, twisted way because the way I look at this is this Jet team, they need an overhaul. The Jets need to look to the future. The Jets need to tear this down and reboot this thing. My biggest fear it was that this team would somehow falsely get to like 8 wins, do what they did with the Adam Gase era, which is they'd win a bunch of meaningless games down the stretch and then convince all of us, hell, hey, it's that time where hey, guess what? We could run it back again. No, they need to completely reboot this thing. They need a rehaul. And look, was Rodgers the worst he's been this season? No, it was just the best he's played, sure. But part of you wonders too, was it the warm weather? Again, you're in Miami, warm weather, older quarterback. Is he going to look the same in December here in New Jersey? Is he going to look the same? I don't know. And you look at the Jets' schedule right now. Like, I think that the Jets are going to finish with 4 wins. If you had to ask me today, if you want to put a number, I think it's going to be 4 wins. Because look, Jets next game, they're at Jacksonville. I think 2 things with that. Number 1, Mac Jones is a disaster. Number 2, it's warm weather again for an older Aaron Rodgers. I think the Jets win in Jacksonville. And then you look at the last 3 games. You have the Jets at home against the Rams, even though the Rams have to come across the country. I think the Rams win that game. Then you have the Jets at the Bills. Again, still too early for the Bills to start resting players. They're going to need that now. The big game to me is going to be January 5th because it's kind of like that weird New England game last year where, again, I don't know where the team's going to be. My money's on it. I don't think the Dolphins are competing at that point. Would I like to see the Jets beat the Dolphins? Sure. Maybe they get to 5 wins. I think the high is 5, but I think more realistically it's a 4 win. And look, I think even with 5 wins, this team's going to get a top 10 pick. And a lot of it comes down to this next regime. And look, here's my big thing with the draft. We'll talk more about the draft, especially this offseason. We do a ton of draft content on this channel, so make sure to like, subscribe so you don't miss any of that. But here's my things for the front office. Just because you need a quarterback, don't overdraft one. If you're the front office for the Jets and you don't love this quarterback class, and I know you don't want to go in with a bridge quarterback or like a Jameis Winston or like a Justin Fields or a holdover for a year, but look, the worst thing you can do is get trapped with a subpar quarterback or get trapped with a quarterback you don't love. If you don't love the quarterback, I say, look, just punt it down the road for another year. If you don't love a quarterback in this class, fine. If there's someone you like in the second or third round as a project, maybe, okay. But if you don't fall in love with Ward, if you don't fall in love with Shadur, if you don't fall in love with Milroe, if you don't believe that they are truly a franchise quarterback, then don't overdraft them. Like, don't get trapped. Don't do that. Like, that's my best advice for that. But look, it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see now that this team has officially been eliminated how they'll play over the last 4 games. I'm curious to see, again, there's things I'm going to watch is Olu's development at left tackle. I think that's interesting, seeing these run backs. And my thought process, too, is Breece Hall, if he's not 100% healthy, just shut him down for the season. He's too important of a player. Give Isaiah Davis, give Braylon Allen some really crucial reps down the stretch that could really help them for next year. And look, especially now they're out, a couple of predictions. Look, play Malachi Corley as much as you can. You have to figure out what you have there, how you can utilize him. I'm done with seeing like Alan Lazard. I'm done seeing with some of these other players. And look, on the defensive line, I know they're going to play Reg because Reg's going to want to make his contract, but maybe play more of these undrafted kids, see what you have there. Play McGregor more, play Watts more. But look, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. Yeah, like don't overdraft. If you don't have a franchise grade on the quarterback, don't do it because you don't want to get trapped. That's the worst thing you can do. And at worst case scenario, you build this team up and you continue to add more pieces and they're a really good team. And then oh, we just need the quarterback, and we make it a great situation for the quarterback to come into. But look, I know it's frustrating. This has been a season for Jet fans where it's just taken a toll. It just takes such a toll on you because, again, especially with where the expectations are, you look at where they are now. It's just so darn frustrating. It's just so darn frustrating. Look, I think that the Jets have some nice pieces. I still think Isaiah Davis has shown he's can be a nice change of pace back. There's some positives from this game. Again, it sounds like what we say every year. We're just like, okay, we just got to try to find the positives. But man, I think this whole building needs a refresh. And a lot of it, I point to the coaching staff and I point to Rodgers because I think Rodgers and this coaching staff reflect each other, especially since he come here. And a lot of it's excuses. It's pointing the finger. Rodgers pointing the finger last week. Ulbrich pointing the finger at Anders today, which I thought was so unfair. I mean, you can make the case Anders was the most valuable Jet. He made the field goal to put this game away, but you couldn't handle the clock correctly. Again, Jet clock management. Once again, Jets had to burn a crucial timeout. Jets don't know how to handle the clock. It's the coaching staff. It's time's a flat circle. The Jets don't know how to handle the clock. It's just a flat circle, basically. One thing I will be very curious about, and are we doing the no matter what, like draft day, like with Malachi Corley? I think it comes down to they'll draft a quarterback if they like it. But again, it comes down to the GM. And if the GM doesn't believe, and again, I think that the Jets, ideally, you want a quarterback. But again, there's a process. We have the pre-draft process. We have all the all-star games. The scouts go through tape. You have the interviews with these guys. Like, if you're not blown away or sold on a guy, I think that you don't want to overdraft. And look, maybe there's a guy that you don't have initially a franchise grade, but maybe feel the development. Like, I think Milroe is probably the prospect I'm most intrigued by with the Jets. And I think he'll be the most realistic quarterback in range. But the thing with him is I think he's got to sit. I think he's the rawest of all these quarterbacks, and you need to bring in like a Justin Fields or, ideally a Jameis Winston to be your bridge quarterback so he doesn't have to start right away. That's how I would really believe it. But again, don't overdraft the quarterback. I think that the goal is to draft the quarterback, but that's why the Jets actually are not calling that. Dude, I call them out all the time. I've called out Joe Douglas. I just call out how bad this coaching staff was. I just talked about how bad the coaching freaking staff was. I'll take Milroe, Sanders, Cam Moore, Gabriel Dunn are good enough. I like Ward. I like Milroe. Here's the problem with Sanders. The Sanders is, I think, going to be the most fascinating quarterback that we have ever seen in this draft process because I really, really think that you are going to see a truly unique process where I really think Dion is going to pull, like we talked about Archie Manning basically telling the Chargers, oh, guess what? Eli isn't going there. I could really see Dion just giving a list and basically writing down, okay, these are the teams, Cowboys, Giants, maybe Patriots. Like there's certain teams, like I think that he's going to make a list and go out there. So it was the right move. Who was the left tackle? Tyron Smith was god-awful this year. Like you're talking, this isn't Madden. Like, imagine the last 2 weeks. If Max Mitchell and Carter Warren are your two tackles, this offense wouldn't move the football. You could have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Brock Bowers, Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce. Doesn't matter if you can't block. Jesus. And look, I do think that with this quarterback class, like I could see Sanders going to the Raiders. I think there's going to be short lived. Now, the other thing too is with Sanders, I think there's going to be a ton of noise around him. And the big thing is with this Jet quarterback situation, I just think that this organization and this fan base, they just don't want noise around the quarterback. I mean, they don't want basically what I think is the younger version of Aaron Rodgers, or I could see Shadur doing like a weekly thing on like a national show like Aaron does on McAfee. Like I think that the Jets just they don't need to, like, it's not just that the Jets have been a bad football team. It's been a circus basically the last year and a half with Aaron Rodgers. And I think that the Jets almost just need to like step back and just have a more calming presence, because right now it's just been crazy. It's just crazy. And I think with the quarterbacks, it will definitely be an intriguing quarterback class. I'm curious to see how everything goes on this. But look, one interesting stat too, Hassan Reddick. All right, guys, let's play a fun little game right now for everyone in the chat. Hassan Reddick has been a Jet for 6 games. He's been a Jet for 6 games. How many sacks and how many QB hits do you think Hassan Reddick has? Let's hear it. How many sacks in 6 games does Hassan Reddick have, and how many QB hits? Just take a guess. Wild guess. And I'll give you guys a second to come up with that, because, again, Reddick, that holdout has just been a disaster. I mean, that is like how not to hold out in the NFL 101. But again, guys, put in the comments how many sacks and how many QB hits do you think Hassan Reddick has had? How many? Like, just take a wild guess. And look, in the Rodgers today, again, first 300-yard game since 2021 against the Bears. And look, I think this offense, there were times they were moving the football, they were scoring. But again, there is a lot of frustrating moments with this team. Once again, they couldn't just kill it with a touchdown at the end of the game. And I know it's frustrating, but you basically knew whoever got the ball that in overtime is going to go down the field and pretty much score. All right, we have 0 sacks. You guys are close. I mean, you're going with the Vernon Golston method. I love it. But here's the thing. He has 0.5 sacks. He's got half a sack. I mean, he's got half a sack. And he's got 1 QB hit in 6 games. Woo. And again, I didn't think Hassan Reddick was going to show up and drop like 6 or 7 sacks, but I thought at least there'd be a couple QB hits. In 6 games, I think it would be realistic to have 2 sacks, like basically a sack every 3 games. I think that would have been real. And, I think like I've mentioned his name more just on this episode than he has basically in the last couple games. But it's just like, again, I just look at this and it's just frustrating. Garrett Wilson, I think, has it right. The team's mindset is right. The process is right. But at the end of the day, we got to stop being losers. They have to figure this out. And I think this, once again, comes down to coaching. This comes down to coaching. They're 0-7 in 1-possession games. And I think that this is something that you look at that this team has to really focus on. I think it's going to be the coaching. And I think the coaching, with better coaching, I think this team can be a better competitive team, because this team has talent. This team has some nice pieces. It's just, I don't think that they have the winning mindset, and they don't have a leader that they believe in. They don't have someone that they believe can be the right leader and someone that puts them in the best position to win. Like, if you are the OC, and again, part of this whole situation is, I know Downing is basically the interim, and I know the staff is thin because of the Saleh firing, but on that play, you would expect Devontae Adams, who is probably going to be a Hall of Famer, one of the most decorated wide receivers we have in the game, doesn't have the wherewithal to say, I got to stay in bounds on this play to burn the clock. And he doesn't. And you just knew, I'm like, watch it. They're going to kick the field goal. Dolphins are going to kick a field goal. And whoever gets the ball first in overtime, like, I didn't know it was worth. Like, the 2 scenarios I had in my head was basically, they're either going to do one of 2 things. They're going to give the Dolphins the ball and score, which happened, or the Jets will go down, fail in the red zone because they're 2-5 in the red zone. They'll go 2 for 6 on the day, kick the field goal. Tua gets the ball back, goes down the field, and scores. It's just, It's just frustrating. And look, I think you're right. Seriously, it is the worst coaching staff in the league, and I don't think it's even close. I don't think it's even close. And again, I know the easy things like, well, Robert Saleh, they'd be better with. Well, Robert Saleh was here. Maybe they would have won an extra game because the staff would have been stretched thin. But this is also the coaching staff. Todd Downing is the one that he wanted. You looked at this offensive line coach. This is who he wanted. This is who he wanted as this defensive coach. It's just, it's just so frustrating. And I get it. It's annoying. I think a lot of us have just kind of at this point checked out on the season. The question now becomes like, how do we approach the rest of the season? My biggest thing is I want the young guys to play. I want to see I want to see like the kids play. Like I know Corley was a healthy and active, but I want to see him play. It's just frustrating. And look, there's a lot to talk about. And again, let me know in the comments. I can do the head coaching search. I can do draft. We're going to have a lot of videos in the upcoming weeks. And again, I think this is also my bread and butter on Rich Sports Talk. This is a very heavy New York Jets themed program, but especially in the offseason. I do full 7-round mock drafts. I do a lot of draft breakdowns. I can do the top quarterbacks if you like. I can do the mock draft sooner in the head coaching search. But here's the biggest thing I will still look at. And look, Steve, I get where Steve is coming from. You have said, you call yourself, say the name, a quarterback away, 90, a new coaching staff. Look, I just feel like with this, we need a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been great, but even last year when we came in, a lot of Jet fans, including myself, were a bit wary about this coaching staff. We still were like, yeah, Rodgers is here, but is this the coaching staff to get us over the hump? And we all were kind of on the fence, and turned out we were wrong. And look, it all comes down to coaching. Like if you hire the right head coach, I mean, the Texans were a laughing stock for years. They got the right head coach. The Lions were a laughing stock for decades. They finally got the right head coach. It's about finding the right people in charge. And I get it that Jet fans, they're at their wits' end. They don't trust them to get the right people. I get it. But if they somehow can find the right head coach and find the right GM, I do think you're going to make an impact. And look, here's the thing. I'd rather have this as a Jet fan. And I know it's frustrating to take all these steps backwards, but I'd rather have this team take a step back in order to move forward than take another step back next year and try to run it back and finish the season like with 7 or 8 wins and try to convince us that they're so close when they're really not. But there will be a lot of tough decisions. Officially, the playoff hunt is officially over, even though we've known it for weeks. Now it's time to look forward to the offseason. My advice for the next couple of games, look at the young players, watch them develop, and, little bit of holiday spirits, shall we say, will also help it. If you want to make a festive Jets, game where you have some nice Christmas spirits or holiday spirits. Again, if you have a good, fun game, let me know in the comments. Maybe we can come up with that together. Like, take a drink every time the Jets call a timeout. Take a drink every time that the Jets, can't get off the field on 3rd down, or every time they go 3 and out, or every time they burn a timeout because the game clock or the play clock is coming down. Every time that basically Aaron Rodgers is just doing easy checkdowns to help with his completion percentage. Every time the defense can't get off the field in a crucial situation. Stuff like that. Stuff like that. Every time the playoff drought is mentioned on the broadcast. Every time that, drafting a quarterback is mentioned on the broadcast. It's frustrating. And look, guys, it's frustrating. I know it feels like we've seen this over and over again, but look, I think at this point we just have to be optimistic because we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. But we'll be here for the remainder of the season. We have a lot more videos coming, especially on the draft, the offseason, and the coaching search, and the GM search. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest videos. Again, guys, and James, I see your comment. I get that. It's at your own risk. So again, James, I appreciate that. But again, guys, Make sure to give us a like and subscribe. Let Jet fans know about our community here. We want to get as many Jet fans in here as possible, especially because this is basically free Jets therapy. This is free Jets therapy for all of us. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe. Check us out wherever podcasts are streaming, and make sure to check out our videos throughout the week as we break down the Jets heading into the 2025 offseason. There will be a lot more coming, guys. And again, it's frustrating, but at least I guess the Jets put us out of our misery today. Thank you so much for joining us here on Rich Sports Talk. We will see you next time.